Look, we need to have a real conversation today. The kind people usually avoid because it's uncomfortable, or worse, it's offensive. But on this channel, we don't do comfortable, we do the truth. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Harold, and this is The Hidden Code. We're here for one reason, to help you navigate the absolute minefield of modern relationships and build yourself into a man of impact through practical, no-nonsense psychology. We aren't interested in how things should be in a perfect world. We care about how they actually work in the dirt and the grit of the real world. Today, we're digging into a topic that a lot of guys feel in their gut but can't quite articulate: the reality of dating older women, specifically the baggage. And I'm not talking about a couple of carry-ons. I'm talking about a mountain of emotional freight. Now, I already hear the comments section warming up. But Harold, men have baggage too. Okay, sure, everyone has a past. But let's be real, brother. The way that baggage is collected, stored, and dumped into a new relationship is fundamentally different for women as they hit their 30s and 40s. Think of it like this. Every single interaction, every situationship, every long-term ex, it all leaves a residue. It's like a tax that gets levied on their emotional capacity with every guy they've let into their lives. Maybe it was the guy who cheated and left her paranoid, or the one who was just a friend but ended up breaking her heart. These aren't just memories, they're filters. By the time she reaches 40, she isn't seeing you. She's seeing the ghosts of every man who came before you. I've seen this in my coaching 100 times. A guy enters a relationship with a woman in her late 30s. He does everything right, he's solid, he's present, and suddenly he's being interrogated because he didn't text back in 20 minutes. It's not about him, it's about the guy from 2018 who used silence as a weapon. She hasn't healed, she's just built a fortress, and you're the one stuck trying to scale the walls. And then there's the therapy trap. You'll hear it all the time. I've done the work, I've been in therapy for years. But honestly, for a lot of women, therapy is just a place where they go to pay someone to validate their side of the story. They aren't finding remedies, they're just cataloging grievances. They sit there for an hour, shoot the breeze with a therapist, table the actual issues, and then walk out feeling empowered to keep carrying the same heavy luggage. Compare that to how we, as men, actually handle our business. I remember taking a group of guys out into the deep backcountry. We're talking 40 kilometers of paddling and portaging through the brush. By the time we set up camp, we were exhausted, raw, and completely disconnected from the noise of the city. We did a hero's dose of psilocybin and just dealt with it. No talking in circles, just facing the mirror of the soul. I've seen men solve more in one weekend of physical hardship and mental confrontation than 10 years of sitting on a beige couch could ever provide. Men go to the gym, they learn to fight, they build things. We process through action. But for some bizarre reason, many older women just keep those tokens of past pain in their pockets like lucky charms. The most dangerous of these tokens? It's the alpha widow syndrome. This is the woman who still deep down pines for the one guy who didn't choose her back. Maybe he was the high-status guy, the bad boy, the one who moved her in a way she hasn't felt since. She had the chemistry, she wanted to claim him, but he just wasn't interested in a permanent seat. So she carries a little shrine for him in her heart. If that guy called her 5 years later after things didn't work out with his main option, she'd drop everything to rekindle that flame. You, the stable guy in her 40s, are often just the safe harbor while she's still looking out at the sea for the ship that sailed years ago. When you date a 25-year-old, you're getting a much lighter version of that story. When you date 40 plus, you're dating a crowded room. Before we move on to how the physical reality starts to shift the scales of power, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like you were paying the price for a previous man's mistakes? Have you dealt with the fortress of an older woman's baggage? Drop a comment below with your story. I read as many as I can. Or, if you're ready to leave the past behind, just comment the words "clear path." It helps lock in the mindset that we move forward, not backward. Also, if you're finding value in this raw perspective, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join a growing community of men who are tired of the sugar-coated lies and are ready to reclaim their edge and build a life of purpose. So we've talked about the internal weight, but now we need to address the external shift. Look, there is a fundamental truth that modern society tries to bury under a mountain of body positivity and empowerment slogans, but reality doesn't care about your feelings. Here it is. Men are success objects and women are beauty objects. Now, before you think that's some shallow take, let's look at the evolutionary biology behind it. For thousands of years, a woman choosing a man who was an unaccomplished, incompetent loser was basically a death sentence for her and her offspring. She had to be hypergamous. She had to pick the winner. This is why women don't care about your struggles, brother. They wait at the finish line and they pick the winners. They want the guy who has already climbed the mountain. Not the guy who's still crying at the base about how hard the rocks are. Men, on the other hand, are wired differently. We select for youth and beauty because, for most of human history, those were the primary indicators of health and fertility. It's not mean, it's nature. And this creates a very specific problem as we get older. You've probably heard the saying that men age like fine wine and women age like milk. It's a harsh soundbite, I get it, but let's look at the mechanics. A man in his 40s who has spent his 20s and 30s building his career, hitting the gym, and sharpening his mind is at his absolute peak. He has success value. He's more attractive at 45 than he was at 25 because he's actually become something. But for women, the peak of beauty value is almost always in the rear-view mirror by the time they hit 40. Thus, I remember a buddy of mine, let's call him Mark. Mark spent his 20s being the nice guy, getting ignored while the girls he liked chased the high-status athletes. He put his head down, built a tech firm, stayed in shape, and by 42, he was a high-value man. He started dating again and was shocked to find that the same women who wouldn't look at him 20 years ago were suddenly very interested. But here's the kicker. They weren't the same women. They were tired. They were, as some people put it, falling apart. It's an uncomfortable reality to witness. When you get out there as a single guy in your 40s, you start to see the smoke and mirrors game. Women at this age start doing everything they can to hide the effects of time and gravity. You'll see the Spanx, which is basically a modern-day corset. They pull it up, suck everything in, and create this illusion of an hourglass shape. But look, there's a massive disappointment gap waiting for you. You meet a woman who looks great in her profile pictures. She looks snatched in her dress at dinner. But then you get back to the house. When that sausage wrapper comes off, the reality of time hits you in the face. It's a bait and switch. I'm not saying women can't age beautifully. There are plenty of women, the Jennifer Anistons of the world, who take incredible care of themselves. They use hormone replacement therapy, they eat right, they stay active. But they are the exception, not the rule. Most women are trying to fight a losing battle against biology with shortcuts rather than discipline. And as a man who has worked hard to increase your value, you have to ask yourself, why would I trade my hard-earned wine years for someone else's milk years? It sounds cold, but it's about alignment. If you are a man who has reached the finish line, you have the right to choose the best prize available. Society tells women they can have it all. The career, the late-night parties, the finding themselves in their 20s, and that men will still be waiting with a ring and a house when they're 42 and the glow has faded. But that's a comforting lie. The myth of male power suggests we're the ones with all the advantages, but the reality is that a man's power is earned over decades, while a woman's primary dating power is granted by youth and then slowly reclaimed by time. I want to pause here and get your take on this. Do you think the success versus beauty trade-off is fair? Or do you think modern dating has totally broken that contract? If you've seen this disappointment gap in your own dating life, tell me about it in the comments. Or if you agree that a man's value only goes up with work, just comment the word evolution. It's a reminder that we don't stay stagnant, we grow. Now let's get into the smoke and mirrors of it all, because this is where things get really bizarre. When that biological clock starts ticking and the mirror starts telling a story they don't want to hear. A lot of women move from maintenance to desperation. They start looking for ways to offset the consequences of time and gravity in the laziest way possible. Look, I'm all for self-improvement, but there's a difference between staying fit and trying to reconstruct a crumbling building with cheap materials. We talked about Spanx earlier, the sausage wrapper. It's a great metaphor for the modern dating experience with older women. You're not dealing with a healthy, disciplined body. You're dealing with something that's been stuffed and squeezed to give the illusion of fitness. Yeah, but here's the thing, brother. Eventually, the lights have to go on and the wrapper has to come off. It's like a bald guy who never takes off his baseball hat. You go out on 3 dates, he's wearing the hat. You go to a nice dinner, he's wearing a slightly nicer hat. Eventually, he's got to take it off, and when he does, the truth is revealed. It's a deceptive way to start anything. If you aren't happy with what you see in the mirror, hit the gym. Don't just buy tighter spandex, but it goes deeper than just clothes. We've entered the era of the neurotoxin mask. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a medical professional, and we were looking at the sheer volume of Botox and fillers being pumped into women's faces today. It's reached a level of collective insanity. You've seen it. The fish lips. I've posted pictures of this on X or Twitter before, asking guys, hey, do you actually find this attractive? And out of hundreds, maybe thousands of comments, I've yet to find one single man who says, yeah, those giant swollen artificial lips really turn me on. Not one. So why do they do it? They're spending thousands of dollars to inject a literal neurotoxin into their faces to achieve a look that the very men they want to attract find borderline repulsive. It's a complete disconnect from reality. And honestly, it makes me wonder about the long-term effects. If you're injecting a toxin locally, it doesn't just stay there. It enters the bloodstream. It moves around. I'm no doctor, but I have to ask, does this stuff cross the blood-brain barrier? Because I've noticed some truly bizarre or erratic behavior in women who go heavy on the injections. It's like they've traded their natural expressions for a frozen plastic mask, and their personality seems to follow suit. I remember having a girl on our Ladies' Night podcast recently. She was in her early 40s, clearly a fan of the fillers, and she asked me straight up, why do guys keep telling us not to get the lips when they keep swiping right on girls who have them? I had to break it to her. They aren't swiping right because of the lips. They're swiping right in spite of them, or they're just looking for a quick hookup, and they don't care if your face looks like a flotation device. It doesn't mean they want to build a life with that. It doesn't mean they find it beautiful. It's about the refusal to deal with your stuff in a healthy way. And instead of the hard work of nutrition and exercise, they choose the needle. Instead of accepting the grace of aging, they choose the illusion. And as a man, when you see that kind of shortcut taking, it tells you everything you need to know about how that person handles problems. If they'll take a neurotoxin to avoid a wrinkle, imagine what they'll do to avoid a difficult conversation or a real-life challenge. I want to know if you've noticed this plastic epidemic in your city. Does it weird you out as much as it does me, or have you just become numb to the fish lip look? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. Or, if you prefer the natural look and want to keep things authentic, just comment the word real. It's a small way to vote for reality over the simulation. Now, we have to talk about the one thing that no amount of Botox, Spanx, or expensive therapy can fix. It's the elephant in the room that modern society tries to pretend isn't there, the fertility window. Look, for some of you brothers, this might be a non-issue. Maybe you've already had your kids, you've had the vasectomy, and you're just looking for a companion to travel the world with. That's fine. But for a huge contingent of men in their 30s and 40s, the desire to leave a legacy, to have a child of their own, is still very much alive. And this is where the reality of dating a woman in her 40s becomes a massive, unavoidable wall. A woman's ability to get pregnant and carry a healthy child to term in her 40s isn't just slightly lower than in her 20s, it's a cliff. I can't remember the exact decimal point on the data right now, but it doesn't matter. The trend line is vertical. We're talking about a biological reality that has existed since the dawn of time. But here's the wild part. You'll hop on a dating app today and see women who are 41, 43, even 45, writing open to children or would love to start a family in their bio. I mean, let's be real for a second. At 43, you've maybe got 3 viable eggs left if you're lucky. And even if one of those fertilizes, the risks, developmental issues, health complications, the sheer physical toll on a 40-plus body are through the roof. It's a high-stakes gamble with a human life. Guys, think about this. Even if they don't say it on the first date, it's playing in the back of their minds. They know that a woman in her 20s is a much safer, more natural bet for a healthy family. The tragedy here is that so many of these women spent their 20s and 30s chasing things that don't love them back. They were told to climb the corporate ladder, get that second degree, buy the Tesla, fill the apartment with designer furniture, and become a travel enthusiast or a dog mom. They put off the one thing that has a literal expiration date in favor of things that can be acquired at any age. I remember a client of mine, a very successful guy in his late 40s. He met a woman who was 42, stunning, brilliant, a high-level executive. They hit it off, but 6 months in, the kid conversation came up. She desperately wanted one. They spent 2 years and a small fortune on IVF, rounds of hormones, and heartbreak after heartbreak. It tore them apart. He eventually realized he was chasing a ghost. Yeah, when she realized she'd waited too long to prioritize what she actually wanted. It's just not an attractive proposition for a lot of guys. Why would a man who has built himself into a success object choose to enter a high-stress, low-probability medical battle for fertility when he could just not? It sounds harsh, but it's the truth of the marketplace. When a woman waits until the window is closing to decide she wants to be a mother, she's asking a man to take on a massive amount of risk and emotional labor that he wouldn't have to deal with a younger partner. Brother, at the end of the day, you have to protect your future. You have to be the one who looks at the facts, not the fantasies. Dating in your 40s is about clarity. It's about seeing the baggage, the sausage wrappers, and the biological realities for what they are. You've worked hard to become the man you are today. Don't settle for a situation that doesn't align with your long-term vision just because you're afraid of the uncomfortable truth. I want to know your thoughts on this. Have you ever dated someone who waited too long and expected you to fix the situation? Or are you a guy who has decided that kids aren't the priority anymore? Let's talk about it in the comments. Keep it respectful, but keep it real. If you're focused on building your own legacy, whatever that looks like, just comment the word legacy. If this deep dive hit home for you, make sure you subscribe to The Hidden Code. Join a growing community of men who are dedicated to leveling up, understanding the game, and navigating this world with their eyes wide open. We're building something different here, and we'd love to have you in the tribe. Have an amazing day. Peace out.